Welcome to this presentation on why people use and don't use technologies. Now, for our purposes, we're going to focus on assistive technology. Those are products that have been developed and designed for use by individuals with disabilities, meaning they may have difficulty walking or seeing or hearing or doing things on their own, grooming, eating. So they help support the functioning of hands and limbs and eyes and ears and legs, and also communication and cognitive tasks. Now, Abraham Maslow developed this hierarchy of needs. This pyramid has at its very foundation or very basic level of the hierarchy fundamental needs for oxygen, water, food, basic survival needs. Next is needs for a sense of security and safety, and then love, belonging, self-esteem, and self-actualization at the very peak of the pyramid. Now, when we think of the outcomes of assistive technology use, we're looking at factors of the technology or the device itself, and at that fundamental, basic, foundational level, it's basically its design, functions, and features. And then how it looks and how comfortable it is for the person, and then how well it works, how well it does what the person wants and needs it to do. And then the personal factors that go along with that are still that foundational sense of security, comfort with using the technology, not just physical comfort, but also emotional and social comfort. And then how use of that technology enhances one's sense of control and power. Now, for 30 years, we've had a non-use rate, generally speaking, across all devices, of approximately 30%. Now, that figure has not budged in 30 years. And for almost that long, we've had legislation that sets out definitions for both assistive technology devices as well as the accompanying services, and that would be evaluation, assessment, training, and so forth. We also have today about 50,000 different AT products. So I don't think it's because there's a shortage of available devices. So what is the issue? Why do we have this 30% consistent non-use rate? Well, when it comes to technology, and it is everywhere now, we can now do things faster, but does it actually result in us doing it better? Sometimes the more technology does, the less efficient we've become. And because technology can do more, we tell ourselves we need what it does. That may not be the case. And because it's there doesn't mean we have to use it. Or because we can doesn't mean we must. Too often we first develop a technology and then look for a purpose and a use. 3D printing is actually an example of that. And we've smartened up our homes, remote this, sensor that, and it's gotten to the point where we have added complexity, complications as a result. So many people today just long for the existence of a dumb home. It's not about the product or the device. As I said earlier, we've got 50,000 different assistive technology products. They come in all shapes, sizes, weights. It is, however, about the usefulness of that technology, its performance, its value to that user. It's how well it helps that person achieve his or her goals and dreams. It's about how well it matches to the person, not how the person adapts or matches to it. That's where we have fallen short. And that comes under the purview of assistive technology services. So here's a chart of why people don't use technology. Now we can pretty much put up a chart in our heads why people do use technologies. They use them because they make a positive difference. But when they don't use them, we want to know why. And I'm going to go back to that slide. This is from my research over the years, and 3 basic factors or areas of influence. That's characteristics of the environments of use, needs and preferences and unique characteristics of that user, that person, and then the features of the technology itself. So some of the factors in the environment that lead to non-use is lack of support for use. Families, peers, employers don't support it. Perhaps the setting itself discourages use or makes it difficult or uncomfortable. It may require support that is just not available. May need IT support, but there's no IT support there. And the choice of product was made by someone else, not the individual who is to use it. And therefore, it's not something they ever wanted to use. Characteristics of the person are unrealistic expectations of benefit. If they over-expect, then no matter how well the product actually performs, it's apt to be viewed as a disappointment. They feel embarrassed or self-conscious using it. They are resistant to technology use. Feeding devices would be an example of where someone would perhaps prefer a personal assistant to feed them or a family member than a device. The person doesn't like the device's discipline and having to structure their routine to it. It imposes many changes in the person's lifestyle routine, and the person lacks the skills and training to use it, and that's not been made available to them. Characteristics of the technology itself is discomfort or strain in use. It's obtrusive. It goes along with the person factor of self-consciousness in use, and intrusive. The person feels out of control, that the device is the one that's in charge. It may be incompatible with the use of other devices. It's too unwieldy, complex, or difficult to use, or inefficient to use. There's better or more preferred options available, and perhaps the person doesn't trust the device. So, again, to repeat, it's not about the product or the device in many cases. It could be, but it may not be. It's always, though, about its usefulness and value to that person, how well it's been matched to that person's needs and preferences and goals and desires. Now, in actuality, people benefit from a combination of technologies, personal assistance, and strategies. So technology is an important resource. We don't want to deny that. But We need to focus less on that technology and more on its match with the person who is the user. We've got brilliant designers and engineers to really make that technology optimal. What's not optimal is how we get the right device to the person and ensure realization of benefit from use. The Institute for Matching Person and Technology over the years has developed targeted solutions to this match of person and technology, which you see at the center of this bullseye chart. The factors that we reviewed surround that target. Characteristics of the person, environments of use, and the technology itself. The outer ring is a continuous cycle of evaluating what the person wants and needs, selecting the appropriate solution, making any necessary adjustments or accommodations to it, having the person actually use it in natural settings or settings of use, and then the cycle continues round and around and around. So think of it as the embedded spheres that the Chinese have carved out of jade or soapstone. So this is a single piece of stone that you see in this photograph. And inside that piece has been carved a series of other spheres. So they're all embedded in one another. They spin independently of one another. You can see there's holes there. You can get those holes to all line up and hit directly to the center of that target of match of person and technology, or they can be misaligned. And that is the analogy to think of. And when we look at personal factors, we want to know that person's mood state, lifestyle, of course, functional needs, prior use, what they've used in the past that they liked, and also what they didn't like. So we don't repeat that, but we do build on success and preferences. And there is an assessment tool that compares a person at baseline or at the start of our work with them to the same characteristics after they've used their device. And when the person realizes benefit from device use, we will see a positive change in these areas. Next are the environments of use. Again, not just the physical architectural built environment, the cultural and attitudinal one, the kinds of resources available in the environment. And again, we can address that at baseline and at follow-up. And when it comes to selecting the best match of person and particular device, here are the factors that we've gone over to address. And here we want to see if they have realized benefit, also baseline to follow up, but we can also compare competing products to see how they align in these areas. There's a selection process that can be followed. In a context of many environmental factors, we address the personal factors of not just the person with the disability, but the provider. That provider comes into that meeting, that teamwork with the person, with their own history and experiences, knowledge and information, what they expect the person with a disability to use. And how they expect that person to change and grow. They have personal preferences and priorities as well. And to support decision making in product or support selection, of course, we want to know the objective function, but we also want to know subjectively. Does a person value doing the task independently with the device? Not just is the device use worthy. And then comparing competing products, trial use so that we can apply additional training or make any needed and desired device modifications. Of course, most important is follow-up to see if the person has realized benefit, what else can be done to enhance their performance of activities and participation and subjective well-being. The methods for doing this product selection, this matching process, are all contained in the MPT book trilogy, I call it, starting with Living in the State of Stuck, focusing on individuals with spinal cord injury and cerebral palsy, to Connecting to Learn, focusing on hearing and visual losses, and then the book focused on people with brain impairment, from learning disabilities and autism to traumatic brain injury to the dementias. This work has been funded over time through multiple sources, including the National Science Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the National Institute for Disability and Rehabilitation Research, now known as the National Institute for Independent Living, Disability, and Rehabilitation Research, as well as funding from Europe. This is the website for the Institute for Matching Person and Technology, where resources can be checked and found. Some tools are accessible there. And I thank you for listening to this presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and gained from this.